What's up, guys? Welcome to the Soul-Filled Gentleman. My name is Shamish, and I'm going to be talking to you about this weekly experience that I had with God, and let's dive into it. So, something that I do kind of regularly these days, since I had my big, revelation with God, I started doing this thing called prayer walks. And on these walks, I just kind of dive into the presence of the Holy Spirit and to Jesus, and we go on a walk together. I take my dog with me. I listen to some worship music, and we just kind of talk out on the trails, out in the open, and we just kind of converse back and forth a little bit about life. Now, on this particular walk, we were kind of talking about my ministry, my mission, what I'm going to do next, and the thought kind of popped into my head about finances and how I'm supposed to afford to do these things that he wants me to do. But before I get into that, this is kind of an important piece to the rest of the story. Not too long ago, at the beginning of February, God told me to actually reach out to my brother. A little bit about my relationship with my brother. We haven't really talked in over like 5 or 6 years, and we kind of separated. We both had our own lives, moved to different states, but we both kind of got hurt from one another through some family stuff, and I had no intention of really rekindling that relationship or ever talking to my brother again. So I deleted his phone number back in like 20, I want to say maybe 2020, like maybe around, COVID, maybe a little bit after that. I didn't want to talk to him anymore. I wanted him kind of out of my life. I made that decision, and so I deleted him out of my phone. So fast forward to, February, God said, "Hey, I need you to reach out to your brother." And I was like, I kind of deleted his number, God. And the Holy Spirit, he looked down at me and he was like, "I'm going to tell you the numbers, close your eyes." So I grabbed my phone and I start typing numbers, and I press send. He told me what to write and the phone number to punch in. And at this point, like, I literally had no memory of my brother's phone number. I didn't know if this was just going to some random person. I cleared him out of my past. I cleared him out of my history. My brother was no longer involved in my life. He would try to send me maybe like a birthday text once a year, but I never really responded, and I would just delete the text message like same day. Sometimes I would respond with maybe a thank you and then delete it, but I never kept it around because I found myself getting more and more upset every time he tried to text me. So God told me the phone number. He told me a message to send to him to wish him a happy birthday, and my brother responded. Basically, part of the message was, happy birthday, but the other part was, I love and I miss you. I miss our relationship, and I want to reconnect. But he responded back and he said, I love and I miss you too. I also want that. Let's reconnect. So that was pretty cool. But this actually has to do with something that I did in the next part of the story. I acted on my flesh and on my human nature, and kind of kind of did something that I feel like a lot of Christians normally do, at least once in their life, and it kind of hit hard. So I was thinking about ministry, and I was thinking about how ministry works, and the finances, and going out in the world, and spreading the gospel, and doing all these cool things in the name of Christ, and bringing the light to the world everywhere that I go. And I was like, man, how am I supposed to afford this? How am I supposed to get on a plane? How am I supposed to do international travel? How am I supposed to go to these places, go speak in front of crowds? And I was kind of freaking out a little bit about the money, and the thought popped in my head, and it was like, well, you can probably come into a lot of money. You could probably win the lottery. Yes, yes, that is a lot of money. I could totally win the lottery. God gave me the phone numbers for my brother so I could text him. This is basically the same thing. It's not the same thing. I was just like, yeah, yeah, the lottery. Yeah, absolutely. God, maybe you can help me win the lottery. That's a lot of money. I take 10%, you take 90%. So I started bargaining with God to like kind of help me like do this. And I couldn't shake it out of my head for some reason. I was like, no, this is absolutely a way that God wants to work in me. He wants to bless me with, I can go help a lot of people. So the thought process was, okay, God, I was like, you let me win the lottery, because a lot of dumb people win the lottery. People that shouldn't win the lottery, people who shouldn't have that much money get that much money. But what if you use someone who's on purpose and on mission for you, and wants to go in your direction, and I want to help people, and I want to do all these good things. I'll start a nonprofit and ministry. I will, put all these good people to work, and pay them more than they deserve, just so I can bless them. And I'll start, funding all of the ministry stuff at my church and at other churches. And nobody's going to have finances as something that's going to be like an obstacle. They can just, have the faith, follow God, go, and I'm just going to be like the money behind it. And I'll only keep a small percentage to pay off my debts by myself. I don't know, like a hangar full of sports cars. Not a big ask. Just a couple of cars would be cool. Maybe my own gym, maybe a house in the mountains and on the beach, but that's it. The rest of it will go to you, God. So I started trying to like put this plan together, what would happen. And all of a sudden I found myself like, I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that, because clearly God is not telling me this. This is coming from me. This isn't I like the conversation that I was having with God on my prayer walk like stopped abruptly, and it just went into this like lottery winning overload, like kind of mind dump, where it was just these ideas kept like coming and flowing, and I'm like, okay, God, is this you? Is this me? You, me, you, me. Clearly it was me. Are you sure? It's probably me. And he basically was like, yes, clearly it's you. But for some reason I couldn't accept it. So I was like, okay, God, I'm gonna put you to the test. Gotta quit putting God to the test. It never works out for anybody. So I say, okay, God, you know what? I'm gonna do this thing. This is how I'm gonna know. God, when I get home, my wife, who is pregnant, has to ask me to go get food at a very specific restaurant that's near a 7-Eleven. And if she asks me for that, I will go get the lottery ticket and I will get her food, and I know it's from you. What could go wrong? The brilliant plan. So I say that to God, and I get home and I walk in the door and I ask my wife, I'm like, hey, are you hungry for anything? She goes, no, I'm good. I ate. I'm like, son of a. So I walk back outside. I'm like, okay, God, I know it was a long shot, but I did it anyway, because I thought it would work for some reason. But I was like, okay. I was like, cool. So that was my answer. I had my answer. And I'm on this new path of being a good steward of my money, my finances. And I come to God with all my finances. I actually gave him all of my finances. I said, Lord, it's yours. Do with it what you will. You know where I'm at, the position that I'm in. You know, I lost my job, but you gave me this new one. You know my future and what me and my family need. Just like Moses, when the Israelites were in the desert for what 40 years, and he kept bringing them food every single day, and he's like, "You don't need more than this. I'm going to give you exactly what you need each and every day." And the Israelites grumbled because it was the same stuff. Now I'm a Chipotle guy. I could eat Chipotle literally every day until I die. But for some reason, I wasn't satisfied. I was just like the Israelites, and I was like, man, if I had this, imagine the stuff that I could do with it. And if I had this money, what could I do with it? And I find that a lot of Christians today kind of go through the same thing as me. I wasn't necessarily alone. My pastor of my church. I go to Rock Family. It's a really great church here in Colorado Springs. My pastor, he actually talked about these. Hey God, if you let me win the lottery, I think it was over like 500 million or something like that. He's like, don't worry, God, I'll pour it into you. I'll give you a portion. And it was really funny because everyone laughed, because like, oh yeah, we've all done that. We've all bought the lottery ticket, like, God, if you let me win, please let me win. I'm going to give you so much of it, and I'm only going to keep a little bit, God, because I'm a good person. I'm going to do this for you. And none of the Christians ever win. And so, that may not be true, but it's not like a really common thing that God just like keeps answering, people's prayers to win the lottery. And we all have this like good intent, but we're still selfish at some level. And I feel like the lottery has been something that I've struggled with a lot in my life, because it took me going on that walk and coming home and talking to my wife that I had faith in the lottery. Like I had hope. I had trust in the system. I had trust that, like, even though the odds are completely ridiculous, I for some reason still believe that it was possible for all of that money to come to me. So I had to look up what faith was, because my faith is in Jesus. I started to swap out the phrase, like, if I win the lottery, when I follow Jesus and trust in Him, I will get out of debt. When I give Jesus my finances, I will be set free. When I give my faith, my hope, and my love to Jesus, the right opportunity will present itself. So I started taking out, like, okay, what am I going to do with the lottery? I started putting in, if I'm going to dive into Jesus. And the more I did that, the bigger my faith grew in Jesus, because Jesus is not a very small odds thing. If you give Jesus yourself, if you give Him your all, you put all your faith in Him, you call on Him, you love on Him, He will take care of you. It's a guarantee. I like those odds. But I was putting my faith and my trust into something that had odds that were stacked against me. This thing that was made from the world to give people hope. So I did a quick Google of defining faith, and it came back with faith is a confident trust, belief, or allegiance in a person, idea, or divine power, often without needing empirical proof. It acts as a foundation for action, hope, and conviction in things unseen, rather than merely intellectual agreement. So my allegiance was to some odds that I might get some money. My belief was, if I went and bought this ticket and I asked God to give me the numbers, that He would give me the numbers and I would win. God already gave me all of this proof that He exists, that He's watching, that He's taking care of me. If you haven't watched my testimony, He literally gave me a whole new body. He healed me. He freed me from my demons that were tormenting and oppressing me. God showed up. The lotteries never showed up for me. But for some reason, I had faith in this idea instead of faith in the Lord. I'm reading in Exodus right now, and every single morning, Moses and the Israelites would just walk out of their tent and food was just there. The lottery didn't provide the food. The government didn't provide the food. The land didn't even provide it. God provided it. And I find, as a Christian, throughout this new walk of life, I've had misplaced faith in so many things. Faith in the government, faith in political parties, faith in teachers, faith in my parents, faith in my job, faith in my community, even like more faith in my spouse than faith in God. I had that for years. I had more faith in her that she was going to do stuff that would help and build me up and make me a better husband and a better person. And she's human. It didn't always work, but I had more faith in her than I did in God. And when you do that with anything, it's going to keep falling up short, because God is the only thing you should have your faith in. And yet I find myself having faith in a concept or an idea or a belief. And I have more faith in that thing than I do in Jesus. But as soon as I put my faith in Jesus, all of a sudden things start working out more. My marriage got better. I got closer with my kid. I left a toxic job. Jesus started putting friends in my life. I had no friends for years. And now all of a sudden my phone is blowing up. I'm getting coffee with like 3 or 4 guys every single week. What I'm trying to say is my life got better when I put my faith in Jesus instead of faith in things of this world. Like, oh my gosh, God, I can't believe I put my faith in the lottery. You've provided so much for me. You keep providing miracle after miracle. You keep showing up when I call. You keep showing up. When I hurt myself, when I go for a run, I say, hey, God, can you heal me? And you say, yeah, man, I got you. And then He heals me. And he just keeps showing up. One of my favorite people who ended up being one of the wealthiest on the planet was King Solomon. So if you haven't read about King Solomon, he's in First Kings, and he was literally the richest person to ever live. Now, here's what I like about King Solomon is he had everything that the world had to offer. He had all the babes. He had all of the money and material that you could possibly ask for. He had the biggest power in the entire world. Like, people would travel from all around the world just to go to him. Whenever he asked, they would say yes. He had that kind of power. He had a ton of respect from everybody, and he didn't ask for any of those things. He asked for wisdom. Chapter 3 is when King Solomon asked for wisdom. God came to him in a dream. He said, "You can have anything you want. What do you want?" And he said, "God, I'm going to ask for wisdom." Verse 9, chapter 3, he says, "Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this, your great people?" There are a lot of people, and it's really hard to govern them. It pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this. And God said to him, "Because you have asked this, and have not asked for yourself long life, or riches, or the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern what is right, behold, I now do according to your word. Behold, I give you a wise and discerning mind, so that none like you has been before you, and none like you shall arise after you. I give you also what you have not asked. And if you will walk in my ways, keep my statutes and my commandments, as your father David walked, then I will lengthen your days." I find myself forgetting to ask for wisdom, because with wisdom, everything else follows. God brings you more blessing, God brings you more discernment. And with discernment, you're able to make better choices. I found that God doesn't want you to live in, I call it poor. It's not necessarily poor money wise, but being poor, he doesn't want you to live in slavery. He doesn't want you to live shackled to the things of this world. He wants you to be free. So I've misplaced my faith in multiple places throughout my life, the lottery being one of them, one of many. But I'm finding that I keep asking God for wisdom and for more opportunity to dive into Him, because I know what the outcome is. When I asked Jesus to show up, He healed me. And that was just a small part, because He also healed the inside. Once He showed up, I was happier. My family dynamic got better. My job opportunities opened up. I had clarity. I had, my anxiety was gone. My stress was gone. My focus got better. All of these things started to fall into place, because instead of doing anything and putting my faith in anything in this world, I said, "God, I'm going to put my faith in you." And the odds are actually in my favor. So a verse that I found was Proverbs 8, 18 through 21. I'm going to read to you real quick. It says, "Riches and honor are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, even fine gold, and my yield than choice silver. I walk in the way of righteousness, in the paths of justice, granting an inheritance to those who love me, and filling their treasury." Proverbs was written by King Solomon. King Solomon had everything, including, I think it was like 700 wives, 300 concubines. That's a lot of women. All of the money, dollar bills. He had every worldly possession ever, and yet it still wasn't enough. He still craved God. He still craved Jesus. And he's like, the fruit that comes from God is better than anything else that this world can offer. So I encourage you to dig into asking God for more of Him. More, Lord, more. 3 words to live by. The reason I say that is because His abilities don't end. There's no cap. There's no high amount that He stops at. I think the highest lottery was at like the $2 billion mark. Jesus doesn't have a highest ceiling to reach. He doesn't have this level of maximum amount of miracles that He's like, "Oh, I can only do this amount. You've had enough miracles, no more." It's endless. And His fruit is so good that that's where I need to put my faith. Not in things of this world, not in the news, not in my job, not in my career, not in my political views or my parties or my government, not in my system, not in my own understanding. But I need to put my faith in Jesus, because Jesus is the only way that we're going to make it in this messed up world. And when my faith is in Him, the odds are in my favor. And that was my Jesus experience this week in my revelation. Till next time, guys.